we already knew about, I mean, Beavis and Butthead was already going and we were already fans. So when we found out that he liked us, that was very cool.
Hey, Steven here from PopCulture.com, and I am chatting with the one and only Mr. Michael Bishop from the almighty Gwar.
Yeah.
I feel so good being able to do that. I've been a fan for 25 years now, I would say. Well, no, maybe not quite that long. So I discovered Gwar through the Universal Soldier: The Return soundtrack. So Saddam Go.
Wow.
It was my first like entrance to the band. That was when I found the band. And I think the first album I owned would have been Violence Has Arrived. That would have been my first, like, go into the record store, buy a Gwar album. So I'm really pumped. Love the documentary, This Is Gwar. Would love to know, is this something that you guys wanted to do, or did Scott seek you out and say, hey, I'd like to do a documentary about Gwar?
Well, we had wanted to do a documentary, and we actually even, like, one of the band had started a documentary. We had also had various attempts to sort of float reality TV shows, which were kind of documentary like.
Okay.
So we were looking to do this, and we actually, like the guy who made the one documentary, which was the Dim Times is what it's called, who was in our band, Don Draculich. It was a cool documentary, but it covered, like, really the very beginning of Gwar, and that documentary has not been released yet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do was do something that was more of sort of the whole arc of the band.
Okay.
And we had been approached by people, several people, about doing it, but everybody, they all had a sort of story to tell, and usually it sort of made it sound like the band was over, like the way that they wanted to tell this story, and it's obviously not true,
right?
So so Scott was the only one who was like, listen, I want to tell the incredible story about how this band has been through all this stuff and has still managed to, so I mean, he just was the guy that wanted to tell this story the way that we wanted it to be told, without us having to, get too involved and turn it into some kind of a hagiography or something like that, So that's why we went with him.
Right on. Were there any aspects of the history of Gwar that you were at all hesitant to bring up or discuss? Was there anything that you were kind of like, I don't know how to talking about this?
There's tons of things that I don't want to discuss about the history of Gwar, but as far as we didn't run into that in the story. If anything, I think it was there's more that he could have put in. So I mean, it's really not of course you're just struggling against the issue of time, and like how much, how you tell a story like that. I mean, it's hard telling any story that it goes over as many years as this story does, and has so many people involved. I mean, Gwar's had a lot of people involved. Probably the only thing that I don't like about the documentary is that there are some key figures who just weren't key to the narrative of the documentary, and they didn't make it in, right? Like Scott Crawl, who was there from the very beginning of Gwar, and back in the Death Piggy days, he's not in it. Jameson Land, who played bass for us for a while, is not in it. There's a lot of people that, musicians and artists that didn't sort of fit into that, the narrative that's being told. I mean, Corey Smoot is not in it very much at all, even though he was a really big part of the band. It's mostly just weird stuff that happened on the road. Like, I mean, the band's been around for a long time, and there's been a lot of conflict and a lot of I mean, not conflict within the band, but I mean, you know, there's just a ton of stories that we could tell. You know, fighting with security, weird shows in the beginning, like, you know, weird managers we've had, like just everything. You know, I mean, it's such a long story. He did a really good job of distilling it down.
Well, I agree. I've watched it a couple of times myself actually, and I feel like I catch on to something maybe I didn't. Maybe the first time I watched it. I was curious about, you know, so the movie talks about how the Beavis and Butthead moment, that kind of exposure was huge for Gwar at that time. And I was wondering if the band had had any kind of relationship or connection to Mike Judge prior to that, or if it was like a surprise to you guys as well that that he was a fan and wanted to include Gwar in with Beavis and Butthead.
I mean, it was a surprise when we found out that Mike Judge liked Gwar. Yeah, it was. You know, so we didn't have any sort of prior relationship with him or anything. Like just one day, you know, I think he might have even come to a show. I don't remember meeting him. I mean, I know he came to a show, but he might have come to a show and introduced himself. But you know, we already knew about, I mean, Beavis and Butthead was already going and we were already fans. So when we found out that he liked us, that was very cool.
Yeah. What was it weird or awkward or strange back then to find out that like you had celebrity fans? I mean, celebrities are like any of us, they like music just like any of us do, but it seems like something that in that day and age may have been quite a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot that were surprising. You know, a lot of stuff outside of our genre. I mean, like you have to remember that you know, Ice-T hadn't really had like success in the rock world yet. So when he came to, sorry, my thing just, but when he came to the show at the Palladium in Los Angeles, you know, in 1989 or 90, you know, it was kind of a big deal. It was like, you know, really the peak of his sort of hip hop pop. So that was a surprise. And he loved the band. He still does, man. And, you know, there's a lot of other ones. I mean, I was really kind of surprised by lately what we've been finding is that there are a lot of comedians, like a lot of the comedians that we really like and respect, that those folks know Gwar and appreciate Gwar. And in some cases grew up with Gwar, right? Like Patton Oswalt and, you know, I mean, just a ton of people that, well, you know, gosh, I mean, even Weird Al, like that was a surprise. You know, Alice Cooper. You know, I mean, I guess that stuff makes sense, but there was one of the weirdest ones was Paul Stanley, like using Gwar, like that was a weird. He made this statement where he was talking about Gwar in context of them not going to the induction into the Hall of Fame. And he was like, you know, what other band besides Kiss has done what we did? He's like, maybe Gwar. And I was like, wow.
That's wild.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, well, especially when you consider the budgets. I mean, because like Gwar is definitely, should Gwar be doing Kiss level productions? Absolutely. Are we? No, we have never, you know, but what we did was we stuffed a bunch of weird looking into tiny clubs for 30 years, you know?
Yep. Yes, they have been very fun shows. I've seen Gwar 3 times. I saw the band once before Dave's death, and then I've seen you guys twice since then. It's funny that the Kiss thing, that is funny because I Alice Cooper, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I could absolutely see that. And even like Iron Maiden with like the level of stage production that they do too. would make a lot of sense to me. But yeah, Kiss, that's interesting.
Me too. Unfortunately, I made one comment in the press, and I'm sure that will never get made now, because I was trying to be funny as Blöthar, and I pretended to confuse Steve Harris with an old woman. And like, you know, and the next thing you know, like the press is picking it up, like,
No.
and, you know, it was just terrible.
Yeah.
I felt so.
Well, I'll make sure to lead with that in my headline. Mike Bishop still doesn't know who Steve Harris is.
Not at all.
I wanted to ask, if it's okay, I wanted to ask about the new Dark Ages. I love the album, been listening to it, and I noticed that you got a couple of features on it, and then on Blood of the Gods, there was MC Chris was on there, but prior to that, really not a lot of like outside artist features. And I was wondering if like that was like a hard and fast rule or something throughout the years, and you guys decided to change it up now, or if it was just like time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, we hadn't had, you know, we had Brocky in the band, right? And Brocky had a lot to say, and he said everything, right? There wasn't a lot that he left out. So in that space, there really wasn't any room, man. Like, you know, and you know, so I mean, it really. He also had a way of working where he would present. Most of the material would come really late, you know, like you write the records and you have the songs, and then you show up and he sings the stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, that's what this song is about. That's what this is, you know. And it's just not that way now. It's much more, and the interesting thing is that it actually wasn't that way early on. You know, probably the first 4 albums were much more of an ensemble sort of effort, and even the 2 after that. So I mean, like the first 6 records were like that, where you had a lot of like guest singers from within the band, right? So a lot of people sort of sharing the burden of creation and the burden of performance on the albums. And then over time, it just sort of focused on Brocky more and more. And that was good. I mean, in a lot of ways. I mean, you know, why stop this genius from talking, right? Like, I mean, but, you know, in his absence, it's like, well, we had to do something that we knew was different. And so what we did was, okay, well, we haven't tried this ensemble method for a while. Let's do that again. And part of that was like, well, let's bring some other people in. You know, I mean, we had always wanted to have, you know, or fantasized about it. We just didn't really have a producer who was down with it and would try to make it happen in the way that producer did. So, you know, and with Lzzy Hale, I mean, that was just sort of, we share a management company. We had done an interview with her. She was a wonderful person. She's just a wonderful human and so talented. No matter what people think of Halestorm, like, you know, she's just a great musician. And so it was wonderful to have her work with us. And yeah, MC Chris too, man. What a pro. Like this dude, MC Chris has perfect pitch.
Right?
People don't know this. Like that dude walked in and was like unbelievable. Like just a really skilled dude. Like very impressive.
That's so cool, man. Mike,
yeah.
I appreciate you taking time to chat today. It means the world to me. Thank you very much. This is Gwar is coming to Blu-ray and DVD October 25th. I think I got that right. I usually get these dates wrong. I'm gonna level with you, but I'm pretty sure that one's right. Mike, thank you very much again. I really appreciate it.